me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you got to enjoy some fantastic first round of the NFL playoffs. Let's go ahead and jump into our hot takes. First up, you see me, Packers hat on. Man, pulled out the big W. Take a little bit of victory lap calling that, but not going to stay on that too long. Let's get into the details. Most likely, the Cowboys will be firing Mike McCarthy. And with that, the rumors are already out there about Bill Belichick coming. Listen to me. The Cowboys do not need to hire Bill Belichick. The game's kind of passed him on a little bit. That would probably be one of the worst hires. So come in and kind of stay right where they've been with McCarthy. I think Vrabel would be okay. Harbaugh would be amazing if he's willing to give up control. But they do not need to be bringing in Big Bill. Also, with that, let's talk about the Patriots. Them parting ways with Bill Belichick was super smart. You know, it's hard to let a coach like that go and come to that decision, but it was the right thing ultimately for the Patriots. Then the Patriots did something dumb. They hired someone from within the system that's right there with Belichick. And I hope it doesn't come back to haunt them too much, because where they're really struggling is on offense. And I think they should have brought in some sort of offensive mind, but instead they went with Mayo. And we'll see how that turns out for the Patriots. I don't think that was the best hire that they could have done. Now, on to the Packers. Just because we got the big win, loving it. Please, Packers, do not get soft. We still need to hire our defensive coordinator. We were 12th in passing yards and 15th in rushing yards. We've been middle of the pack, and a lot of times towards the back end. Please do not keep the Packers defensive coordinator, even if we go on a magical run. He just is not the guy. And finally, got a shout out to St. John's. I went there, again, a little bit more homerness. They're looking great with Rick Pitino, but I really hope they figure out how to close out games. They've been in a lot of good games against some ranked opponents. If they can figure out how to close it, not only will they be in the dance, but they might even make it to the second weekend.
You guys want my hot take? My hot take is Brock Purdy, Super Bowl MVP. 350 passing yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing. And hey, 49ers win the Super Bowl. So enjoy it while you can, because the dynasty is here.
These are my hot takes for the week. CJ Stroud is the best rookie QB of all time, and he's already a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year this season. He had over 4,000 passing yards and 23 touchdowns in 15 games, and he just had an amazing performance in the first game of his playoff career with 3 touchdowns. I'm really excited to see how his career progresses. The Buffalo Bills will win the AFC. If they beat the Steelers, they'll get to play at home versus the Chiefs, who have really struggled offensively this season, and the Bills' defense has been a buzzsaw recently. They have great balance offensively and defensively, and I think that they match up well against every team in the league, and they're really peaking at the right time. And the Chargers should be the favorites to win the AFC West if they get Jim Harbaugh. Herbert with Harbaugh would be a scary duo, and Harbaugh also should be able to get more out of that very talented defense that's underachieved under Brandon Staley, and I think that this team could finally reach the heights that they should have reached all along.
My first hot take of the week. The Packers are going to run into a buzzsaw in San Francisco next week. They looked amazing and phenomenal this week, but they are going up against the best team in the league next week, and I think they will be kept to under 20 points despite rolling on all fronts. My second hot take is that the Lions will beat the Eagles in a back and forth game with a lot of scoring. I do think it'll be entertaining to watch, but I do think the Lions have more momentum right now. And finally, my third hot take, Bill Belichick signs with Dallas, and they'll be even better next year, potentially the number 1 seed in the NFC. Those are my hot takes.
Draft regrets, we all have them. So coming a little closer, I'll share mine. Austin Eckler, you had a phenomenal week 1. Got injured. You were out 4 weeks. One of them was a bye, so it's not too bad. But guess what? You never found your consistency after that. And being drafted 3rd overall in that league, what a bust. Rashad Penny, I had high hopes, not necessarily super high hopes, but Swift just came in and stole that running job. You had 30 offensive snaps all season, and 20 of those snaps came in Week 18 when Swift was sick. So that's really only 10 meaningful fantasy snaps. Unbelievable. Dalvin Cook, you guys already know how I feel about Dalvin Cook, and he is a bust.
All right, time for a few players that made us cringe and we regretted that we drafted them. Oh man, let's jump into it. First for me, J.K. Dobbins. This hurt me a lot because I had probably him in 70% of my leagues. He got hurt his very first game. You took him in the third or fourth round, and it was a big hurt for you. Next, Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay. He didn't perform. He had a couple of few blurbs here or there where he did okay, but overall, he just did not perform for you like you wanted until week 14. So if you had him in the playoffs, it was great, but before that, he was probably on your bench or cut. Next, QB, Geno Smith. Everyone's hoping he would have a little bit of that magic from last year. He had finished in the top 12, and he just did not have it. Finished as QB 19, player 45 overall, which is terrible for a quarterback and just not what you're expecting from him. And finally, Najee Harris. Like Dobbins above, except he was healthy and played the whole season. He super underperformed until week 15, and just like Godwin, if you had him during the playoffs, you loved him because he came through strong, but if not, you probably dropped him, or again, he was on your bench. You took him in the third or fourth round. So those are a few players I very much regretted taking this season.
These are the players I regret drafting in fantasy football in 2023. Jamar Chase had a good season statistically with 100 catches and over 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. He also finished as the wide receiver 11 in fantasy football, but based on where he was going in drafts, it really wasn't worth it, and I ended up taking him over Tyreek Hill, which left me a little salty because my gut was telling me to go with Hill all along. I do think Chase will bounce back next year, though. Garrett Wilson, it wasn't his fault that Aaron Rodgers went down in week 1, but after that, his hope of living up to his second round or late first round draft pick status was not going to happen. He only finished as the wide receiver 26 this year in PPR formats, and I do think he'll bounce back next year, and he has a lot of great years ahead of him. Elijah Moore was an absolute non-factor in fantasy football this year. He finished as the wide receiver 56 in PPR, and I really thought he would get something going as the number 2 option in the Browns passing game, but it seems like David Njoku took that spot, and I think in the years to come, Cedric Tillman and David Bell will eat more and more into his role, and he's untouchable in fantasy going forward. And finally, Pat Mahomes was probably the biggest bust of the season in fantasy football this year. He was drafted as a QB1 and finished as a QB8. I really regret taking him over guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, but you live and learn, and I think next year I will not be taking a QB early.
Players I regret drafting. It's sad to have to talk about these guys because I was very high on all of them, and hindsight is 2020. I think it's important not to just focus on the results. I did a lot of research this year, and it's important to trust the process. I'm happy with my process this year, but players don't always work out. There's an infinite number of variables going on in the NFL in these games, and you can't control almost any of it. So my first player I regret drafting is Bijan Robinson. Mega stud prospect running back. Biggest one since Saquon and Zeke. And those guys finished as RB1 and 2 in their rookie year. Well, Bijan, not so much. He was a first-round pick, but he did not finish as a top 10 running back. If Arthur Smith is the head coach next year, I probably will be out on Bijan, but I'm expecting his price tag to be a second-round pick next year instead of a first. So I'm not going to avoid him like the plague. I'm just not going to target him like I was this year. Next, Patrick Mahomes. I took him in the first round in a few leagues, in the second round in a few leagues. I did win one of those leagues, so it's not all down and bad, but he was drafted as the QB1 and finished as a QB8. And you could have waited until the 10th round or later and gotten guys like Dak Prescott, Tua, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Sam Howell. All those guys were better than him on the year. So it was bad to take Mahomes specifically, but the other 2 quarterbacks you would have taken early both were number 1 and 2, so I still like the process. Mahomes just didn't work out this year. I'll be looking to bounce back and draft him again next year, just a little later, and hopefully he'll have a little bit more firepower. Third, T. Higgins. Man, the Bengals were just due to fail this year. With Burrow getting hurt, Higgins getting hurt, everything just went wrong for the Bengals this year. He was really, really bad even when he played. You never knew when to start him, when not to start him, and you were just forced to hold him on your bench and kill a bench spot most of the year. Finally, my ride or die, my true fantasy love, Javonte Williams. I do not know how to quit you because I know your prospect and your talent level. Sean Payton was your head coach. I think maybe this one was just an injury thing. You were coming back from an MCL, ACL, and those are serious and usually take more than one full year. So we'll see how you're doing next year, but you let me down big time this year, Javonte. Those are my players that disappointed that I regret drafting this year. This hand was played at 1-3-0 limit at the MGM in Las Vegas. Stacks are $600 effective. Action folds to the cutoff, who's a whale that raises to $15. Action folds to the button, who is a solid reg and calls 15. Action folds to me. I call with Jack 8 offsuit. Normally I'd be folding out of position for 4 more big blinds, but I'm trying to play cheap pots against the whale as often as possible. The flop comes a dream. 10-9-7 rainbow for the flop nuts. I check. The whale bets 50. The button calls 50. I make it 165. The whale goes all in very quickly, and the button tanks before eventually calling. My dream scenario, I snap call and hope to get a clean run out. The whale flips ace-10 for just top pair, and the button player flips king-jack offsuit for a double gutter. Unfortunately for me, the turn's a queen, and the river bricks out, and the button takes down an $1,800 pot with king-jack offsuit.
This is a poker hand I played at 1-2 stakes at Shuffle 512 in Austin, Texas. Effective stacks were $200. One player limped and I was an MP with ace-queen offsuit and I raised to $15. The button, small blind, big blind, and the under-the-gun limper called. We went to the flop with $60 in the pot and the flop came queen 5-9 rainbow. It checked to me and I bet $30 and the next to act and the button called and the other players folded. When the button makes the call here, I start to weight him more towards weaker queens than me, since there aren't many draws available that would continue in this spot. So at this point, I'm looking to go for stacks. The turn comes another 5, which reduces the chance that he's slow playing a set or some kind of 2-pair hand that didn't raise off. And I don't think he will have a 5 in this situation very often. So I go for the slight overbet to 155, and he snap calls with king queen. The river's a 7, and we hold and scoop the pot.
I have a poker hand at Choctaw. We're playing 1-2. We get into it with a really splashy player. He's probably playing 70 to 80% of all of his hands, raising 50% of the time, just so you kind of get an understanding, and they built a big stack. So we get into his hand, and he's on a gun and makes $20, and I look down at pocket queens in middle position, and I re-raise him to $75. It folds all the way to the under the gun, which is the whale, and he makes it 150, which I love. I'm wanting this. So I just call to close the action and trap because I know he'll keep firing. And we go to the flop. The flop is the ace of hearts, ace of spades, queen of diamonds. I'm loving it, especially when he bets into me. He bets $200. I put him on an ace, and I think this is the spot. So I jam for $650 total, and he snap calls. So then we go to a turn, which is the 8 of hearts, and the river, which is the 9 of hearts. I show my full house, and he shows ace queen for a much better full house. I didn't put him on that. I mean, it sucks to be absolutely dead on the flop, and he scoops this massive pot.
Welcome to Miller Time. I'm Kevin Miller, and today I'm going to be discussing with you guys game selection and the importance of it. One of the things I learned a long time ago when I first started playing cards was about game selection and the effect it can have on your win-loss ratio. It can single-handedly make you a winner or loser no matter what stakes you're playing, whether you choose to practice it actively or not. Just to give you a random game theory quote that I learned a while back, you could be the 10th best poker player in the world, but if you're sitting at the table with players ranked 1 through 9 in the world, you will lose money if you do this over and over again. And inversely, you could be the 10th worst poker player in the world, but if you're playing with Tweedledee and Tweedledum every single time, you're going to be a winner. So choosing the players you play against and knowing which players not to play against will have a huge effect on your win-loss rate. Sometimes you're in a game and a couple of the donks or fish or whale get knocked out and get replaced with regs or pros or semi-pros, this is a sign to either table change if you're at a casino or just get up and call it a night. I know sometimes you might be down a little bit, or you want to get even, or you're playing good, but the most important factor is who are the people I'm playing against. And when the bad players get replaced by good players, it's time to just call it a game. We're here to make money. We're not here to sport our pride or ego. And having the discipline to practice this will make you a big winner if you're a small winner, or it'll make you a winner if you're a loser. It really will. And it can significantly impact your big blinds per 100 win rate. So focus on game selection. Don't be too proud to walk away when the table's not good.
Soccer hooligans.
Let's jump into this edition of the Added Minutes on the Degenerate Gambling Life with me, Jordan Tennis. This weekend, we witnessed an absolute demolition in the Spanish Supercopa. The stage was set. Two Spanish giants squaring off in an El Clasico held in a neutral venue in Saudi Arabia. With the pitch full of stars from the world of soccer, one rose above them all. Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. came out of the gates on an absolute mission. He netted 2 goals in the first 10 minutes and created an absolute mountain for Barcelona to climb if they wanted to get back into the match and have any sort of part in this final. Barcelona would strike back in the 33rd minute via striker extraordinaire Robert Lewandowski, only to see Vinny Jr. complete his hat-trick in the first half 6 minutes later from the penalty spot. If the door for a comeback wasn't closed then and there, it most certainly was in the 64th minute as Rodrigo scored off a rebound to make it 4-1 in favor of Madrid. It was a rough night for Barcelona as they failed to record a single shot on target in the second half, but both clubs will turn their attention back to La Liga action, where Real Madrid currently sit 1 point behind with a game in hand on league leaders Girona. Now, we turn our attention over to tennis. There was big excitement for the return of 2019 and 2021 Australian Open champion Naomi Osaka. Osaka was making her major tournament re-debut in this year's Australian Open. I say re-debut because she was out 18 months on maternity leave. The crowd roared at Rod Laver Arena as Osaka was introduced on the PA system, and it was a quick return into action as Naomi fell 4-6 in the first set before losing the second set tiebreaker. You could tell there was some rust, but despite the loss, there was plenty of positivity surrounding the former champion as she said, "I felt like I did the best that I could possibly do. It was just really nice to be at Rod Laver Arena again, hear the audience, how much they interacted with the match. I have to tell myself, hey, like 6 months ago you were pregnant," stuff like that. Of course, there's a voice in my head that is, who are you to think that you can come back and immediately start winning matches? Listen, her fitness and sharp play are sure to return over the next few weeks and months. And one thing is for sure, having Naomi Osaka back is not just great for the women's game, but the sport as a whole. We look forward to seeing her back in action all year long, and in a wide open women's field, she's sure to be back winning majors in no time. For those of you guys dealing with the cold weather, we hope you guys are staying warm and enjoying the NFL playoffs. We will see you guys next week.
Okay, for fantasy basketball this week, we're going to look at a couple of players that are right now ranked higher than where they'll probably finish the year, and they're a great position for you to trade away and get some much better valuable assets. First up, we're going to talk about Grayson Allen, Phoenix Suns. He's currently player 59 overall, so why would you trade him? Well, with Bill back and the whole team together, he's going to be at best the 4th option, so I expect him to slip out of the top 100, but you can sell and push to people, hey, that's player 59. Also, you can push that he is on an ascending offense that's just going to put up a bunch of points. So those things look really good to players that really don't dig into it. But for you, you should be looking at it and looking to trade him away for someone that's much more valuable around that same player 70 to let's call it 40 range. And then we're going to talk about the big dog, LeBron James, right? I think it's a great time to sell him. He's currently player number 18 overall. Sounds great, but when you look under the hood, he's actually been player 68 for the last month. He just keeps getting dinged up a little all these years. He's still a fantastic player, all right? But for fantasy basketball purposes, I think it's a good time to sell the name LeBron and try to get someone else that's in the top 25 that's younger with much higher upside. Maybe package for Luka, who's hurt a little bit right now. And I mean, that would be such a huge steal if you could get Luka for LeBron and someone else. Maybe LeBron and Grayson Allen. That would be a huge steal. But that's what I'd be looking right now, is to trade those two players. Okay, guys, hope you appreciated this volume. That will be it for this week. If you'd like some of our merchandise, please comment below and let us know, and we'll reach out to you. And then a huge reminder, Super Bowl weekend, we will be in Vegas from February 8th to the 12th. Also, we're going to be having meetup games, multiple. First meetup game will be at Mandalay Bay, Thursday, February 8th at 6 p.m. And for all those of you that aren't going to be there on Thursday, we're going to have a second meetup game, Caesars Palace, Friday, February 9th at 1 p.m. It'll be an afternoon game. Come to either of those, meet with us. We're going to be giving away some merch. We'll talk about the big game. We'll be playing poker all weekend. So hopefully you're like us and you're looking forward to the Super Bowl. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, and subscribe.